Good morning, everybody. I think this is 2 Samuel 24 and then First Chronicles 22, 23. And Psalm 58. Just check the title. That's it's the best thing I can suggest. I don't know. We're reading in Samuel, 2 Samuel, that it was the Lord who became angry at Israel and provoked David to take an illegal census. But in First Chronicles, we read that it was Satan that actually tempted David to take the census. It was a little hard to reconcile that. And as interesting as it would be to do some research, and I will on my own, but at the moment that's not really what I was drawn to. I just point out that there are some mysteries that still need to be plumbed, some places that have to be investigated. What drew my attention, what drew my eye, was once again Job. Job, we talked about a couple of days ago. What an interesting character he is, and he had bad points and good points. And one of the things that we see today, regardless of how David was provoked into taking the census, David knew better, and he should have said no. And Job tried to protect him, but also tried to protect the kingdom. He, with tact, tried to prevent David from taking the census. That's what we read in 2 Samuel. And then in First Chronicles, we read how he actually disobeyed the king and didn't take a complete census. And that's really what brought up a lot of conversations I've had in the past of questions here about authority. And Job took the census everywhere, but he left off Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, and the tribe of Levi. So it wasn't a complete census. It didn't really protect. David was left with 3 choices of consequences, and we know how that all played out. But my question really is about our responsibility towards authority and obedience of authority, because under the new covenant, it's made very clear. Peter wrote on this. And when Peter wrote this, it was a time when the Christians were being persecuted, being killed in Rome, in the city of Rome. It wasn't a widespread persecution as sometimes we think it was, but it was a very serious thing, and a lot of Christians were being killed in Rome when Peter wrote about authority being put in place by the Lord. It was he who raises authority and lowers authority, and they represent him, which really leads to a lot of questions of, do we always obey authority? Or are there times like Job, when Job chose not to obey the king completely under the guise of obeying the king? Are there times that are given to us not to obey? Are there things that are so horrendous that we're actually let off the hook and we don't have to obey? I've heard a lot of discussions about this, and there's a lot of uncertainty still for me. So I go along with the premise that really governs all of my life, which is listen to the Holy Spirit. We know what the written instruction is. But in all these things, it's being sensitive to and listening to the Holy Spirit, because the Word is the living Word, and we know that. So we have to allow the Holy Spirit to apply it to our hearts. It's like people who say, well, I don't know if I'd ever be able to be a martyr. Listen, you're not in a season. You're not in a place where you actually even have to think about that. When you're in that place, you will be given grace to do what Father, what Father is allowing to happen. And if He's called any of us to be a martyr, then He will give us the grace and the strength by the Holy Spirit to do that. So even now, pondering the question, is there a time of which I would disobey? I don't think Job sat around and years beforehand wrote out a plan of what he would do if he was ever put in that position. I think for him, he looked at it, he was concerned about what would happen, because Job obviously knew the law. He obviously knew the prohibition on the census, and the reason why the king was not supposed to take a census is because he was not supposed to be relying on or dependent upon the strength of his army, but his dependence was supposed to be on the Lord. And Job knew this, and he knew that there would be consequences, and so he chose not to fulfill the complete order of the king. We don't have to play that scenario out in our head. We just need to be obedient to the Holy Spirit and trust that if that ever happened, if we were ever brought to that place, we will be given the grace to carry out the will of our Father. So, do with that what you want. You guys be blessed, be encouraged, and today we walk in obedience to the authority that the Lord has put over us. God bless.